really appreciate you joining us for our Teamwork Makes the Dream Work virtual webinar. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We appreciate it. To those that are in attendance, just a friendly reminder, please use the Q&A chat feature. So there's the chat, then there's the Q&A. It's definitely better to use the Q&A for any questions. So as we're going through, we'll have Gary O'Neill, who's our sales manager out of our Kitsap branch office. He's going to be having a nice interview with 3 of our experts that we love to speak with who help our clients. So as we're going through, please post any questions you have. And if that question is able to be answered, if we're able to get that covered in the right amount of time, we'll have that question answered right here live. If there are any questions that are not covered, rest assured after our program today, the clients who are in my area and the clients who are in Gary's area, we're planning on doing our best to follow up and reconnect with all of you after our virtual webinar. Phone or email, we'll make sure that your questions are all answered. Also, the contact information to any of the people that we're working with, we're more than happy to give that out if you would like it. Yeah, so we'll make sure that you're able to get connected with the experts to get your project up and running. But without further ado, we want to get started and get right into it. I'm going to bring Gary O'Neill up. Again, Gary is our branch manager for our Kitsap office. We appreciate you being here to do our interviews. Our first one coming up is going to be Keith out of our Timberland branch, Timberland Bank. So let me remove this really quick, just like that. And Keith, if you would start your video and also unmute, and I'll bring you right up on screen here. There you go. All right, Gary, take it away, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joey. So folks, we'd like to thank you for participating, attending our webinar today for 2 reasons. Number one, we're all busy. So please accept our genuine thanks for taking the time, managing your day accordingly, and making this fit for us to present these folks to you. As was said, we like to surround ourselves by experts in the field. We consider building a home as if a 1,000-piece puzzle. It's a very intricate science, and it's got to be done right. So one of our internal business principles is we don't want you lacking resources, not just any resources, the best folks in the local area that can be provided to reduce your frustration and simplify the process. And please be assured we have done that again today. The 3 folks that you're going to be listening to, asking questions of, are not only vastly experienced in their fields, but they are experts in their fields, their areas of work. And so we think that you're going to richly benefit from this presentation. That is our expectation, making the most of this time with you. So again, as was said, during the course of their presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A. I've got it open on my screen. We'll ask the questions as you present them. If it goes beyond our speaker, as was promised, we'll follow up with you so that no question goes unanswered. So to begin with, we're going to give our attention to Keith Baggerly from Timberland. Keith, how long have you been doing this?
About 35 years, 36 years.
Very nice. That's a wealth of experience, Keith. And so thank you for taking the time, as busy as you are, to be with us today. So we've got some general questions, Keith, that we'd like you to answer for us today. To begin with, just nice, big, general question. How is a construction loan different from a traditional home loan?
Construction loans, Gary, have quite a few more moving parts than a standard purchase or refinance transaction with a mortgage. Not only do you have to qualify the borrowers, the same as a standard mortgage, but then you also have to qualify the property. The estimated future value of the property, the cost going into the build, the suitability of the land, which kind of crosses over with the construction folks. So all those extra parts just carry a lot more involvement.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Keith. So with that said, then one of the most commonly asked questions that we get in our office, Keith, with regard to lending is what are the key qualifying factors? I know that's a big question, but how can you define that?
Well, we're going to split between the borrowers and the property. So we're going to qualify the borrowers, and we're also going to qualify the property. For us at Timberland, the qualifying ratios, for example, your maximum debt ratio cannot exceed 45%. It has to be at that or less. So that would be your proposed payment on your new home, plus all of your other consumer debt, the payments on those. In addition to that, that home cannot exceed 45%. On the property side, we have two metrics that we use for setting that up. One is loan to cost. And the loan to cost, we can go up to a maximum of 90% of the total cost of the project. And then that is counter-checked by loan to value. And in the loans that we do, we give the information, the budget, the contract, the description of materials, and the plans to the appraiser. He or she has a very good imagination and comes back to us with what we call an as-built value or as-built appraised value. Based on that metric, we can go to a maximum of 80% loan to value.
Okay. Just to kind of further define that question then, Keith, what can often disqualify someone from a construction loan?
Debt is a major factor. A lot of folks coming in probably have a home that they're living in now that they may want to sell. And with the program that we have at Timberland Bank, then we know that a lot of people don't qualify if they have more than one mortgage that they have to take care of. So what we typically do on construction, if you have a home to sell, you don't want to move twice if you don't have to. So basically, we will anticipate that. We'll get a broker's opinion, rental opinion of value, and we can use that to help offset that existing payment. That will bring things more into line that way. The other aspect that we've seen some of is let's say your loan to cost exceeds 90%. And typically on loan to cost, I should drill down on that a bit, because what we do there is add all of the costs, not only the actual construction costs, but the soft costs. So your land purchase, if you own the land, we can use the value that's into the land. If you're purchasing, the down payment on that land will help go to defray that loan to cost. We can, all the soft costs, your permitting, if you have engineering that's involved, you can defray that. That becomes part of the cost. And if you've paid on that already, that will help go into the down payment on that loan to cost. So I don't know, I hope that's answering the question the way you need to hear it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I know it's can be unique according to the individuals involved, but that is one of the most commonly asked questions: is what is it going to require? Do I have the ability, potential of staying in my home, at least for a good portion of this time, the process and all. So thank you. That was satisfactory enough for our general conversation today. Let's honor this first question though, Keith, before we go any further. Here's the question. Say, for example, if the cost of the land is $200,000 and the construction cost is $400,000, say after build, the appraised value is $700,000 in total, then you can lend 80%, i.e. $500,000 to $60,000. Is that correct?
Almost. So it depends on what county. For Kitsap County, where I'm located, actually, our maximum conforming loan for Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac is $548,250. So basically that loan to cost scenario I gave you and such was for a maximum of 548,250. If we go above that in Kitsap County, that becomes jumbo. In Pierce County, jumbo is like 700 and some number above 700. So this would be in Pierce County would be a conforming loan. Also in Snohomish or King County, this would be a conforming loan. In Kitsap, Mason County, some of the other not so expensive to live in counties, then the 548 would be the number. So let's see, if the cost of the land is 200,000 and construction cost is 400, say after the bill, the appraised value is 700,000 in total, then can you lend 80%, i.e. 560? Yes, we could in Pierce County or in King County or Thurston County. That would be okay.
Okay.
We would have to drop it back to 548, 250 if we wanted to stay in conforming, or we could go jumbo, in which case, most cases we would drop down to a 75% loan to value.
Okay. Any further answer might be best discussed with you directly. So thank you for that.
So many moving parts, like I mentioned before, that it gets
Right.
kind of involved.
Yeah. No, very good. Thank you, Keith. Keith, how does interest work in regards to a construction loan?
Okay, construction loan that way is different than a mortgage. So let's see. So basically our loan amount, when we close on the loan, if there's a balance owing on the land, we pay that off immediately. That doesn't hang around. That becomes part of the construction. Let's say in the case of a $400,000 construction loan, let's say the land was $100,000. Then immediately your first payment, then after we close on that loan, you're going to be paying interest only, not in principal and interest, but interest only on the amount of funds that have been drawn on that construction loan. So initially you're going to be paying interest on the land. And then during the course of construction, as you draw funds out, it's like a credit card almost that way. As the loan amount drawn increases, then your interest payments are going to increase as well.
So Keith, is it fair to say that that inflated interest number that I'm looking at initially during the construction period before it converts to a conventional home loan, that number should not scare me because that's short term and going to be applied only to the amounts during the course of the phase of construction?
Absolutely correct.
Wonderful. Besides the home then, what can be included in my loan?
Well, I always tease people going, well, we can basically include anything. The land development costs, if you have to put in a well, we can include that cost. Septic system, any hookups, engineering, architectural. I've even kidded some customers about, well, gee, we can do everything but pay for you to buy an excavator to do some of your own dirt work. We can, however, pay for you to rent one if you're so inclined to do it that way. So pretty much anything involved directly with the build can be included.
Wonderful. Okay, that's good news. And then finally, Keith, how much cash, so you could say out of pocket money, is recommended just overall in general beyond the loan?
We want to see that you have some reserves, maybe 3 months, maybe 10,000. Again, it's kind of dependent on the loan size. We do include a contingency fund in our figures on beyond the actual budget for just the kinds of things that have occurred here recently. Price increases due to COVID, for example, or lumber costs going up, or anything else that is unforeseen. We all missed the boat someplace, and now we got to make up the difference. And instead of doing it cash, typically we'll have a contingency budget, which is 3 to 4% of the total budget.
Very nice. And Keith, we just got a question that came in the chat as opposed to the Q&A. So let me ask this and we'll move on. What is the seasoning period for timberland on property, and can funds be dispersed for permits being issued?
Okay, that's seasoning. Basically, if you've owned the property for less than 1 year and are coming into construction, then we that would be considered for our draw purposes unseasoned, so we would go with your acquisition cost for under a year. So let's say you bought your property, you got a real deal, got it below market at 50,000. Well, then, and you're applying right away for your construction loan, then our basis there is going to be that 50,000 of your acquisition. If it's over a year, then we go to the market value of the property, and that equity that you have in the property that can be contributed towards down payment.
Okay, very nice.
What was the second half of that?
Can funds be dispersed for permits being issued?
Okay, yes, but it becomes chicken and egg scenario there. Typically, we're going to want to see the permits in place before we fund on the loan. And we can include in the loan anything, as I mentioned before, anything that's gone into the cost as long as we meet the other metrics. So yes, you can be reimbursed for your permits or for any of the other costs as long as we meet that 90% loan to cost and the loan to value.
Wonderful. And just one last question just came over the Q&A. This might be specific to Timberland. Is an FHA loan with 3.5% down an option for new construction?
Not going in. I know we get the same kind of question about VA. You know, VA guarantees the loan for the vet in lieu of down payment. When we do the construction loan, it has to stand on its own. We typically will do FHA takeout financing afterwards if we need to go there. You know, FHA is a great vehicle for some borrowers, not for all. So we can't go in the front door with a 3.5% down payment.
Very good. Thank you, Keith. So Keith, before we move on for the sake of our other panelists, could you just verbally give our folks in attendance your direct phone number and email address?
Sure. My direct phone number, office number here is 360 area code 337-7727 extension 1808. My email is krbagger, BAGGER @timberlandbank.com.
Perfect, Keith. Keith, we so appreciate your obvious expertise in the area of construction lending. Thank you for taking the time. You're welcome to stay on if your schedule doesn't allow. Certainly, folks will follow up with you directly or we'll forward you any further questions. But again, thank you, Keith, for your willingness to be with us and share your knowledge.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. All right, folks. Well, thank you for your good questions. Now let's move on to, so we've got a sense of the loan process now, the intricacies of what's involved there. But all of that doesn't matter until we've got land. So we need a land expert agent in place. And we'll get into the intricacies of why to use someone that really is knowledgeable with land here in a moment. But I'd like to introduce to you a true expert leader in her field, Deborah Bonneville. We'll wait for her to come on. Hi, Deborah. And I'm sorry, Deborah, I failed to ask you to unmute. So if you could do that.
There we go.
Wonderful. Deborah, thank you so much for being with us. You are a wealth of knowledge and expertise. We certainly appreciate an expert such as yourself taking the time to be with us.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Oh, absolutely. So getting right into it, Deborah, here's our first question. Why should I consider using an agent experienced with land rather than the one only skilled with buying and selling existing homes, maybe even the person that helped me buy the home I'm in, so forth? What's the difference and advantage of looking for someone that knows land?
Well, I believe that, all realtors can sell land. It's in our contract that we can do that. But I like to think that I have probably a better vendor list. First of all, I know that we need to contact a septic guy. We need to make sure the well is working, and we have just a lot of things to work through as far as the lot goes, and a lot of resale real estate. We probably won't have a list like that. walking a piece of property with your maps and understanding slopes and setbacks and this sort of thing is not common knowledge. And unless you've worked with it and been in the trenches with it, you may or may not know some of those details or how to find them. And I'm always learning, of course. We're always learning. But for example, the Pierce County website is a great wealth of information. They actually do a very good job in letting us know if there's a moratorium on the property. If somebody took the trees down last year and now you can't build on it for 6 years, we know how to double check that and see if you're wasting your time with a piece of property. Sometimes the listing agent doesn't know, and they're surprised when you tell them, hey, you have a moratorium. So those are just the things that we have in our wheelhouse and in our hat that we can pull out and utilize to try to save people money. You don't want a feasibility study and paying people to do that for you when there's some obvious roadblocks ahead.
Very nice, Deborah.
Yep.
Your answer would seemingly suggest, Deborah, tell me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of listings for land, but at the same time, there's a lot of bad land for sale that someone that knows land would maybe more skillfully differentiate than someone who simply was very, very capable at selling existing homes. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and I just double checked my numbers this morning. There's 175 land listings in Kitsap County. Some of those lots have been on the market for years, and there's a reason why they've been on the market for years. The rule of thumb is that you can build on anything for the most part, but it's just how much is that going to cost you to do it? And a $20,000 lot might cost you 150, 200,000 just to get it ready for building. Or you might want to go with a $150,000 lot that only needs clearing and you can just get your septic and your water and go. So it depends on the lot, but out of 175 lots in Kitsap County, probably less than half of them are nice lots. So we go through the maps, and if you tell me you want to build an Alderwood or one of Gary's great homes, then we see what the dimensions of the house are and if it's going to fit. That's always one of our first things, is the house going to fit? So, and just because it's 2.5 acres, it might be a very narrow 2.5 acres, and maybe your 3,000 square foot Rambler isn't going to work. So we always check those things.
Yeah, 3-5 acres, there may be a half an acre in which to build upon. So it's a good thought, Deborah. And in fact, related to that, John has asked this question. Do you know of the restrictions in land size for building in different counties?
I do know Kitsap pretty well, Mason County, and I've been working in Pierce County. And if I don't know, I know how to find it. Pierce, Kitsap, and Mason, I'm pretty knowledgeable about. And typically our paperwork and our MLS tells us the zoning. So if it's a regular zoning, say maybe R5 or R10, that's pretty much the same in all counties. But when we come up with a funny one that we've never seen before, we're like, oh, what is that? We just go to the county website and figure it out.
Okay, real good. Thank you for that. Any further might be better to talk to you directly, it would seem.
Yep.
Big general question here. What are some of the common mistakes, just a couple, made when searching for land?
Oh, I feel like a lot of folks will get in their car, pull up their Zillow app, and just start driving around. And even though it's vacant land, a lot of sellers, they might live next door, they might live across the street. And because of the COVID regulations, which are easing up now, but we can't just go and start walking on people's property without an appointment. People think, well, it's just some trees, it's fine. But you really want to make sure that you have an agent that's made an appointment for you. and it's a safe place to go. And you're going in the daylight. There's a lot of sometimes there's people camping on those properties that may not supposed to be there. So I feel like too, you've got that app open, you're driving around. It's not a bad idea to go figure out your neighborhoods that you might want to live in, but to go and walk on specific properties without an appointment is it's never good. But definitely want to make appointments. And then a lot of times the ads that you're seeing online, they're not correct. They're pending or they've sold last week, and they still show active on the social media apps. So that's another one. And you've just wasted all day and however many gallons of gas looking at properties that aren't available or won't fit the house you're looking for, or they have a salmon stream running down the middle of it and it didn't say that on the app. Those are the things. It's just best to have an appointment and know exactly where you're going and what time.
And related to that answer, then, Lisa asked the question: are there good land listing sites aside from Redfin and Zillow?
They're all pretty much the same. They all say that they download directly from the MLS, which I just had a lady call yesterday with a list of things out in Shelton area, and half of the things that she wanted to look at were not available. So they kind of hide the availability in those ads. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes if their properties are available or not. John L. Scott has a nice app that I can send for your phone, but again, it isn't always accurate either. It just depends on the agent on the listing side and whether they've updated their information as well. So we always call and double check before we go to properties.
Okay, so not necessarily one you would suggest. Very good. Let's get more specific.
It doesn't hurt to go on those sites and get an idea, but you should always double check with your realtor first.
Right, just for the sake of accuracy. Very nice.
Yeah.
Get some more specific and just, as best you can. It's a common question. One of the most popular ramblers for us is the Douglas. It's a big home.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to build a Douglas, which is 54 by 80, what size parcel at the least? And I know obviously there's dimensions involved.
Mm-hmm.
But what am I really looking for then? Am I looking for a half an acre? Am I looking for an acre? Give me an idea.
Well, if you have to put in a well and a septic, you obviously are going to need more like an acre. If maybe there's public water and you don't have to have your well so far away from your septic system, then you might be able to get away with 3/4 of an acre, half acre or so. Again, depends on how the lot is shaped. And we have maps on our website that tell us, it's 100 by 200. Well, as long as you've got 5 feet setbacks, 25 feet from the road, you got to figure that out. And then depending on whether you need a well and a septic, or maybe you get lucky and there's sewer there, but that's usually not the case here in Kitsap. So, but
Right.
I would say you're looking at least, just to make sure you have room for everything, a 3/4 acre or more.
That makes sense. And obviously, one of the greatest advantages of the build on your lot process is that ultimately my home is not going to look like a development. I do not have a postage stamp parcel. I'm not going to hear my neighbors, discussing the day's events, or be able to reach out my window and ask for a cup of sugar. There's a nice piece of land that gives me the peace and serenity that I was hoping for to begin with. So,
Yes.
but at the same time, we don't need to overspend for land that might not be necessary within our budget. Do you suggest looking for land with an existing septic or well, etc., or having these installed myself?
I do recommend that when someone calls and they're looking in a certain price range, I said, let's put a search in there as well for maybe old mobile homes that need to be tore down, or an old fixer house. There was one recently for 165. The cost to remove an old mobile home is usually about $5,000. But usually you've got a septic system that's there. You can test it, making sure it's working correctly. There should be water and power if the mobile home was set up at one point in time. So a $5,000 mobile home removal can be a lot cheaper than putting in a well and a septic. And it doesn't hurt to put those on your search, and don't rule them out. You should definitely consider them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Very nice.
And you also have your infrastructure. Most of them, we already have a driveway, and we already have, maybe a little bit of landscaping. You're probably going to tear some of it up, but
Can be
Yeah.
a nice head start when it doesn't
Yep.
exist, and oftentimes.
Yep.
Last question for you then. What are the advantages? You just touched upon this to a degree, but what are the advantages, disadvantages of buying a parcel with an existing dwelling and having it removed?
Yeah, the advantages are all of your utilities should be there. The well is easily tested. That's a $51 test down at the Spectra Labs. Takes a couple of days, make sure the water's good. The septic system is easily researched to see when's the last time it was inspected or pumped, and couple $100, you have a septic company come out and take a look at it and tell you if it's a viable system, or maybe it needs some minor repairs. But again, that's usually a lot less expensive than starting from scratch.
By all means. Let me see if there is one more question or no. I think that'll do it for now. So Deborah, again, appreciate your expertise, your insight with regards to land, how indeed you are an expert in the field. Can you give the folks in attendance your phone number and email address?
Yeah, my phone number is my cell number 360-340-3359. You can check out Deborah, DeborahBonne.johnlscott.com. There's all my email. I also answer kitsaprealtor@gmail. So either one. I can
Folks,
put it in the chat if you want.
Yeah, that'll be fine as well. So folks, if feel free to reach out to Deborah, as was the case with Keith, or reach out to Joey or I, and we'll give you that direct contact information. But Deborah, thank you so much. Appreciate your time and your insights today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You bet. All right, folks. So finding the land is the hardest part of this whole process, but using someone that might know land, and obviously this is one of your many decisions that you'll make for yourself. These are only suggestions that we're offering, but using someone such as Deborah can simplify that process and reduce some of your frustration. So now we've found the land, we've got earnest money potentially upon it. We're looking to determine an educated decision as to whether I should buy this piece of land. Obviously, we don't want to buy a piece of land and simply convert it into a park because it didn't fit the needs of building a home upon it. So how do we make certain and assure ourselves that we've made a good decision? Well, by talking to an expert such as Kevin Klein, who we'll introduce here next. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. No, it's our pleasure. No, we certainly benefit from the knowledge of ones like yourself. So, Kevin, here's our first question. Just big, broad question. There's a lot involved, but what services does a company like yours provide?
It's a good question. That's a good place to start. So for Go Feasibility, the services that we offer start with land studies, so studies on the property themselves, land planning, so coordination between many of those aspects that were mentioned before, well, septic, critical areas, in addition to that. And then as well as permitting of your parcel and project management services, so things that are outside of the scope of work for Koval Homes as an example.
Okay. And maybe you touched upon this. I missed it. If so, I apologize. What sort of turnkey? Let's say I'm out of state, or my wife and I work. I don't have the ability, time, resources to manage the land preparation. What would your turnkey involve? And can you give me, and I guess this video is being recorded, but I'm not going to hold you to it. Give me an estimated cost of what that might be.
So it really starts, this whole process really, as we started with lending and then we obviously moved into acquisition of the land, scope of work really determines your budget, your timeline, the whole process of how this entire, the feasibility, let's call it, right, of this process really depends upon a scope of work. So in a feasibility study, we will develop that scope of work for a project. And then that will determine what types of services that a client may need assistance with in project management. So it really depends. It's per parcel or per project. And it can be very, very small in scope, or it can be quite large. So it really depends upon the client's needs, the particular area they're building, what aspects of project management they're looking for. So we try to customize that specific to each client with that. So we really take a case-by-case custom basis approach.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
all right, understood. More of an a la carte than one size fits all. I get it. Just to kind of further that question and your answer, Kevin, if I'm looking to determine to buy a piece of land and build upon it, is there anything that a company such as yours wouldn't provide me that I would need to do outside of the services that you include?
So the focus for our studies and what we try to do, and I think Deborah did a good job of touching base on this, is we want to try to provide as much information as possible prior to a client making a commitment on that project, as well as financial commitments from them. Because at this point, they don't own the property typically, right? So we want to make sure that we provide as much information prior to them doing that. So we aren't going to provide many of the aspects in feasibility, like engineering, geotechnical, those aspects, because typically you've made a commitment once you've decided to take on those aspects of the project. Feasibility in general is a very comprehensive study, so it's going to really delve into, I don't know if I'm leading into your next question, but definitely want to make sure that we cover all of our bases, and financial and timeline is a big part of that.
Well, that does relate to the next logical question. Help me understand what a feasibility typically includes. How much time should I require when making my offer? What's the average, again, just general average cost?
That's a great question. So our studies are a set cost of $2,575. And for that price, you get a very thorough analysis of the viability of your project based upon your proposed development. So what kind of home do you want to build? Where do you want to have it placed? How do you want the home orientated? Landscaping goes into that. But then, of course, there are many other requirements that you'll need to go through: jurisdictional or municipality requirements, critical areas, many other aspects to development that will also play into your scope of work and your budget. So that's what our feasibility study does. And the end of it provides a very detailed line item cost breakdown, as well as a schedule and timeline for those things being accomplished. We also go through and prioritize which of these are going to be the most important aspects to accomplish in what order. And there are also some different availabilities of, if you can refine your scope, this may be a better direction to go on this parcel. So there's a lot of value there for those types of studies. The minimum timeline, so the state minimum is 30 days. So real estate guidelines and laws in Washington dictate that. So if you see a property that's being offered with a feasibility less than that, we tend to steer people away from it. It's not really realistic to accomplish this type of a study within less than 30 days. And then also you're signing a waiver saying that you're going to waive your right to those 30 days. We recommend, if possible, 45 to 60 in a lot of areas of Pearson, especially King County, as there's a lot of additional requirements for engineering and critical areas.
Very nice. I'm going to add a thought here, Kevin, but I don't want to ever pretend to know more than I do. You are the expert in this area. I am not. But we often will say to clients, we use the analogy of a feasibility being like buying a used car on Craigslist that's got 200,000 miles. We're going to want to often take that to a mechanic of our own and evaluate and determine the value of it. Feasibility helps us to do that, but sometimes a car on Craigslist, the seller may have already taken it to a mechanic and say, see, look, it's good. Why would I not necessarily, but disagree if you think it's otherwise, why would I not necessarily take the seller of a piece of land's feasibility and accept it as it is without doing my own?
That's a really good question. And there's two basic reasons of why you wouldn't want to do that. One would be conflict of interest. You know, if the seller is benefiting right from the sale or that transaction, they have a conflict telling you all the intricate details of why a property may not be as easily developed as someone who's an unbiased third party. So for Go Feasibility, we're an unbiased third party. That's one of our mainstays. We focus on that. We're not tied into any contractors, engineering firms. We're going to tell the client exactly what is necessary. So that would be the first reason. Second reason for that would be that your scope of work is going to be different depending on the individual. So what home are you going to build? Also, requirements change throughout the years. So feasibility that was done 2-3 years ago in 2021 may not be valid. You know, King County critical areas, for instance, get updated on a regular basis. 2018, we had a lot of building code changes that have now been implemented as of February of this year. So a study done prior to that may not include those requirements, and the scope of work would change.
Wow, those are really good points. Thank you, Kevin. That helps me to appreciate that it is indeed worth the cost. Even if you come back to me and say your recommendation isn't to necessarily buy this piece of land, I owe you a thank you note, because that's money well spent in avoiding a problem that I would have had otherwise. Last question for you, Kevin. How long are counties, and I know this has been changing like the wind with the pandemic, but how long are counties, King, Pierce, Thurston, Kitsap, and Mason, our general build area, taking to get a building permit?
That's a common one, and that's a good one. And you're right, they have been changing quite a bit. And part of that reason is because it depends on workload of each county. They didn't anticipate the demand that we have currently. So a lot of counties laid off reviewers or planners, not anticipating that this building trend would come into play. So there is a backlog. In addition to that, when we talk about scope of work, it really sets up an individual, you know, two parcels identical next to each other can have different timelines and costs. So there are certain things that are parcel specific. So I'll talk in broad terms, but I do want to make sure to remind people that depending on your project specifics, for instance, you may be looking at a parcel that's going through boundary line adjustments or as part of a short plat that's currently being developed. There's some additional timelines that have to be considered. And if you're going through health review, so septic and well versus utilities, water, sewer, those timelines will be different as well. In general, King County right now is 9.5 to 12 months from the process of starting and ending permits in general. And on certain projects, they can expedite that for an additional cost to King County. It will depend on the specific parcel details itself, critical areas, and a few other aspects. Pierce County is probably going to be among the quickest. It's a 3 to 6 month turnaround process. Again, that'll depend upon critical areas, and if there's health review, those do extend those timelines as well. And then Kitsap County is going to be approximately 5 to 9 months for timeline review. Mason County has one of the largest variables. It could be very short, 4-month review. That's kind of your ideal scenario. You've got a lot of approvals, but it can be up to 10 or more months depending on the specifics of that parcel, if there's pending permits, in particularly critical areas. And last but not least, Thurston County is about 5 to 10 months, and it does depend upon critical area review and a couple other aspects. but those are kind of some generals. But to let people know, city municipalities within those counties, those vary as well. So check with us. We can give some really appropriate timelines. In our study, when we're developing a scope of work, we're going to identify those timelines for your specific project, which is very helpful. And just to kind of give people a little bit of info, we recently completed a project within a city municipality in less than 3 weeks from start to finish. So you can still get permits quickly if the project is lined up correctly.
Yeah, very good. No, thanks for, it's a tough question right now with
Yeah.
all that's going on. I appreciate you giving me, despite the bad news, it's accurate. So that's all I can really ask for.
Yeah.
Lisa asked a question. If you touch upon this for a moment, is there anything that can be done for the project, on the project, while waiting for the county permits? There's plenty that can be done in terms of preparation for the actual foundation. Is that not the case?
Correct. It will depend on your specific parcel where you're located. In particular, King County, as that example was mentioned, critical area designation is the priority. So until you've got that paper in your hand, you're very limited in what you can do. So when it comes to our land planning, we coordinate to start with that first, right? So that as we're going through different parts of permitting, you can accomplish certain aspects of site development. If you've also gotten approval, for instance, for demolition, depending on if abatement's needed or not, age of home, those are types of things that can be done in addition. And then, of course, working with a builder such as yourself on engineered plans and getting those are pivotal to making sure the permit stays on track, as well as lending requirements, because there is timelines for those and underwriting review. So there's a lot that you can get done while you're waiting.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And again, coming back to the idea, much of this is unique to the parcel, but ultimately, yeah, there is a lot that can be done more often than not. Kevin, you and your company are truly outstanding, and I'll quantify that in this regard. Go Feasibility is one of only 3 referrals that are qualified for the voucher that we will give you when you order your home. And what that voucher is, and we think, to our knowledge, we're the only on-your lab builder that's continuing to do this during this pandemic period, at the least. We don't go beyond this whenever that might occur. But what this voucher is going to do is it's going to simplify the permitting process. So you've ordered your home, you got your engineered plans, permitting process. Put it simply, it's going to prevent you from having the level of frustration with the county that you would have otherwise experienced. You will take far fewer Tylenol if you hire a company such as Kevin's to automate that process. And we're paying for a good deal of that cost and encouraging you to utilize that resource and simplify that process. And the fact is, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, no fault of anybody at the county. They're doing the best they can, but they are not available to the degree they were for the average person March of last year. Is that still the case?
That's correct. Very much so. And additional requirements are still coming through with each county. They're starting to slowly adopt the new drainage critical control manual as an example, critical areas manuals for fish and wildlife, as well as building codes, and energy. So these things do make the process a bit more difficult to navigate. Counties aren't as available as they once were to the public in general to answer questions. So it definitely is an added value to be able to have a representative who knows how to navigate through that.
Yeah, by all means. Kevin, before you go, can you give the folks, or simply put it in the chat, your phone number and email address?
Absolutely. So our phone number is 206-219-0565. And then you can also go to our website at www.gofpllc.com. And we've got a chat feature on there and a customer submission form. Or you can email us at info@gofeasibility.com.
Perfect. You're a busy man, Kevin. Thank you for taking the time and your expertise today.
It's been a pleasure. We appreciate working with you, Gary. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Feeling is mutual. Thank you, sir. Well, we thank Keith. We certainly thank Deborah. We thank Kevin for their time. we hope we've accomplished your purpose. Before we give it back to Joey, do want to honor John's question. It's a question we have heard recently. With the price of lumber coming back down, will the home prices be updated again? So I'm going to answer this question in two ways. One, yes, lumber has gone down. But if you can imagine milk being 3 times the cost it was March of last year, and it coming down the equivalent of about a quarter or 50 cents, what has been the case is insignificant to the remarkable increase that has occurred. And it's not simply lumber. It's other building materials that have followed, not to the same degree, but other building materials have also contributed, as well as the fact that, as it often does since January's, especially labor costs have increased on top of that. So John, to answer your really, really good, timely question, we are, and I can speak for any other on your lot builder in this area, have not seen any reduction in prices. And I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news. Talking to everyone that we know that knows something about this, unfortunately, we don't expect to see anything of meaningful value in terms of reduction of all these costs in the immediate future. You know, we can't see the future. We wish we could, but if you wanted a bit more of a definition, John, I'm going to suggest we're not going to see it, as any of us won't, as builders before the end of this year. It's unfortunate that things can go so rapidly up in price and so slowly back down if and when that happens. So I'm sorry, we wish it was different, but it's just as simply as who would have guessed that a pandemic would come and make it more difficult to get what you want done. It can still get done. It's just more difficult, but we're doing our best to manage these costs. Well, folks, I hope this satisfied your purpose. If it didn't, please reach out to Joey and I. Don't hesitate to do that. You've got the contact information. If you didn't get it by means of the chat or how these good folks shared it with you, please let us know that as well. One of our internal business principles that we hold ourselves accountable for is we do not want you lacking resources. We don't want you wondering who to call, what questions to ask. We hope this proved it to you, but test us beyond this. If you're at a point where you need excavators, septic designers, surveyors, ask us and see how fast we can send you 2 or 3 that we know will reflect well upon us. So, all right. Thanks for your time. Take it away, Joey.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. And thanks everybody for being here. Our attendees too, but definitely Deborah and Keith and Kevin. I think I see Rachel on there too behind the scenes. It's nice seeing all of you. Before we go, we actually do have a little poll. I'm going to launch this really quick. We're always looking to improve. Please rate us 1 out of 5. How did you enjoy the program today? We're always looking to do better. We're going to do more of these. We did this back in January and February. I'm sure we'll do it at least once or twice more, likely before the end of the year. But again, thank you all for being here. Let's see, we got this poll going right there. Okay.
And Joey, before
Yeah.
we sign off, do you want to answer those last 2 questions that just came in?
Oh, I didn't see them. Thank you. Let's see. All right, we got one. The prices mentioned for home build cost on your website are the same for King County as well. Yes, that's actually something that's unique about Koval Homes compared to a lot of on your lot builders or even Koval from years ago. So typically with any on your lot builder, prices would vary from location to location. I think typically a lot of builders will do a mileage charge. If you're from this location of the branch to your land, there's a mileage charge. With us, whether you're building in any of our 5 counties, the home price on the website is the same. The only difference would be if you were on, let's say, Vashon Island, dealing with a ferry, that would change some costs. It's a good question though. And then the last question, would there be any financial benefit to waiting 6 months or a year to start the process? Yes and no. And maybe Gary, you can answer this a little bit too. It's been my experience that the longest projects are always the most expensive. Now, waiting to get started and saving up your initial down payment costs, it does take time to do that. But in general, my my experience has always been, if you have your land and you have your budget, you got the home picked out that you want, maybe you've spoken with Kevin with Go Feasibility, you know what you're getting into with your land, hit the ground running. Don't wait. The longest projects are always the most expensive. At least that's been my experience. But Gary, is there anything maybe you would add to that final question?
No, I think you touched on it. Yes, there's advantages and disadvantages. I wouldn't hesitate to get started if the motivation to do so would be thinking that I could save money. We don't want to be overly negative here, but everything that we have done in terms of research, analysis, and projections is that this isn't going to change in the immediate future, and it may not ever come back, honestly, anywhere near the level it once was.
Mhm.
So we don't think waiting 6 to 12 months is going to save money. We think it more than likely will cost you money.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. That's been pretty much exactly what I was thinking too. It's just being optimistic is a really good thing, but you definitely have to keep it realistic. A lot of folks are on pause right now. And sometimes that's, it's a case by case thing. They need to be. But in general, I know I sound like a broken record, but the longest projects are always the most expensive. And I say that coming from, I have a great deal of clients in King County, where, as Kevin with Go Feasibility was saying before, just the permitting and planning can take a year. Those are the most stressful and often the most expensive. So it's nice that we have experts like Kevin and our other ones too to be able to help you. But I think that's all of the info that we have here. Gary, did you want to add anything before we sign off?
No, I mean, we want to build your home on time, and so we want to end our webinar on time as well, Joey. So anything else in conclusion? I think we're good.
Yeah, no, we're coming up on 2 minutes, so we'll go ahead and say goodbye. But again, all of our panelists who came, all the experts we have in our network that do such good work, thank you for sharing with our clients. To the clients that are still here, thank you for coming. Gary and I are going to follow up with you directly to make sure you're all taken care of. Thank you for choosing Covault, and we'll talk to you later.